Yo, what's good, guys? We are back at it again with another MLB The Show 25 video for you guys, and today I'm going to be going over all of my favorite infielders that you should be using in ranked. If you want to win more games, if you want to have higher batting average, more success, I would use a lot of these cards in these higher tiers. So if this does help you to win more games, or if you do just really enjoy the content, I would urge you to like and subscribe. We are on the way to 10K, and we would love to have you here. So let's go ahead and hop into it here. Yoan Moncada, B tier. Very solid for a team affinity card. It's always nice to have a switch hitter. The high clutch kind of helps offset the not so great numbers against righties. But personally, just not a card that I would have in your lineup super long term. Will Smith here, I think for my money, the best live series catcher. Has, I think, the best swing of any live series catcher. Is not a switch hitter like Adley is, but his stats are just way better, has way more power, isn't weighted as high on defense. Honestly, just hitting wise, he's probably more like an 88, 90 overall. It's just the defense is really poor. But for my money, best live series catcher. Contreras, maybe you run him over Will Smith if like Will Smith is playing down a day, or if you're newer to like Hall of Fame, if you're on legend difficulty, maybe you just need a bigger PCI. It's kind of what Contreras does, has more contact, less power. Whit Merrifield, just probably D tier, honestly. Like, objectively, it's probably a C or maybe even a very low B tier card. Not a huge fan of using guys with not a lot of power, but just value-wise, he's bad. You're locking in Bobby Witt Jr., who I'm also not a huge fan of, to get this card, who's just not that great, and you get a better collection second baseman in the AL. For that division, so just not a huge fan of him. Vlad Jr., more of a contact focused first baseman, so similar to Contreras, if you're making that transition to All-Star and Hall of Fame and you're struggling with that PCI size, maybe you would run Vlad, or maybe if he's playing up a day or supercharged or something, then obviously he'd be one of the better options. They've done a good job in recent years of just making his swing slightly better each year. But just not really an S tier first baseman, I don't think. Trey Turner, for some people, this probably will be a S tier card. For me, he either needs more power or better fielding. He just cannot field super great at shortstop. You can sneak him in at second base and he'll play okay there. But just like I said, the power is decent. It's sneaky because he has good quirks and he has a nice swing. But you would like to see one or the other there be higher. I get how power creep works. You can't have everything. But if he just had like 5, 10 more power, he would probably be an S tier card. Bazana might be unpopular here, A tier. When I've used this card, he hasn't been crazy. And I just feel like there's better options that are very similar to him. So I think A tier for me, but definitely one of the more well-rounded second basemen. I think his contacts get close to 90, but I think his just all around, like almost every stat on the card is like 75 to 80. So a very well-rounded card. Todd Helton, A tier. Not a huge fan of like these Freddie Freeman contact type first baseman, but he has one of the better lefty swings in the game, in my opinion, and always has some nice quirks. So he kind of plays higher than his stats would suggest, but still not one of my favorite first basemen. TP, Terry Pendleton, super nice budget card. He's almost like a free version of Jose Ramirez, so I would kind of think of him like that. He will be on a lot more teams when we get that second rank drop, which is coming very soon. So he's a very solid card. Do not mind him whatsoever. Termar, probably just C tier, maybe B tier. For me, he's more of a starter card. If you're just getting on the game, you can go grab him. He'll give you some good innings. If you missed out on the spring breakout one last year, that card was insane. This one has some of that same juice, but he's just not really that same guy. Ted Simmons, my money, best catcher in the game right now. He's also the catcher that's going to transition the best from like Hall of Fame to legend to GOAT. Just has the highest clutch and contact and stuff. And he's also a switch hitter. So very, very good. Probably the best catcher in the game right now. Unless you're on like, if you're a hard stuck all-star player, maybe not. But with Hall of Fame starting at 600 right now, it's kind of hard to be a hard stuck all-star player. Sammy Basayo, I think he's A tier. Maybe he's S tier. I think he's like 2A, 2B with Mike Napoli here. I'll just drag him down since we're talking about him. I think these guys are like tied for the second best catcher. Basayo is kind of weird because he's like an inverse splits guy. He actually hits like lefties better as a lefty, which maybe you like that, maybe you don't like that. And then Mike Napoli, very good power numbers, some of the best average power for a catcher in the game, maybe the best. And the contact isn't terrible, but his clutch is terrible. So he's batting like 7, 8, 9 in your lineup, and you're just kind of praying, especially if you're on a higher difficulty, that he doesn't come up with runners in scoring position. So that's kind of the asterisk with Mike Napoli, and it's why I think Ted Simmons runs away with being the best catcher at this point. Ryan Howard, probably C tier. Value-wise, I think he's slightly better than Merrifield because the Phillies are cheaper to do. And if you just want a bench bat first baseman that comes in and mashes righties, I think Howard's one of your better options in the game right now for that. You're looking like mid-80s clutch, 100 contact right, 100 power right. As far as just mashing righties, very good. But if you've used Ryan Howard in the past, you know his swing is not the greatest, and he gets ate alive by lefties. So more of like a platoon guy or a pinch hitter. Richie Sexton, A tier for the value he brings, maybe even S tier. It depends on how well you get along with his swing. He is one of those taller players, and I believe his contact numbers aren't great, but his clutch kind of offsets that. Maybe he is. He's close. He's like a poor man's Mark McGwire. You could argue the swing's better than Mark. We might have to revisit him, but I think that's an interesting spot for him. Rhys Hoskins, probably top of B tier, maybe even knocking on A tier. One of the best value cards in the game, one of the best Team Affinity cards you can go get. Always has a nice swing. The contact numbers aren't crazy, but the clutch is really high and the power's good. So a very solid card there. Peter goes in like the C tier where he's a great starter card, maybe even D tier. I think Termarr has a little more longevity. He's a decent starter card, but I think there's better starter options, so I just probably wouldn't go with him. Paul Molitor, F tier. This is a great example of a card that just doesn't have enough power. I think he has like average 45 power or something. Every good swing you have with him's a line out. If you're not hitting perfects, and even then, a lot of times they're flyouts because he has no power. It's just not a fun card to use. Nolan Jones, he's similar to like Hoskins, where maybe you can make the argument he's getting into A tier. I used him a good amount. I do have Todd Helton, so I did use Nolan Jones a good amount. Doesn't feel like he has the exact same sauce as last year. Maybe they took some quirks away. I'm not 100% sure. I think his average power is kind of lower than last year. When he gets a low diamond, mid diamond, high diamond, however you want to say, he might jump. But as of right now, I just don't think he's super worth using, especially at like first or third, which I think are both of his secondaries. I know he can play third. Don't know about other ones. Nicholas here. Everybody that's played co-op already knows. He's a stud. He has very good average power with better average contact than like Pete Alonso. And if he's facing a righty, he almost feels Jordanish, where it's almost a home run every time. But that being said, the contact isn't crazy. The clutch isn't crazy. He's going to have to be phased out after you start to get in that Hall of Fame range. Mookie S tier, begrudgingly. I don't think he has the same sauce that he has this year. Maybe I need to try him again now since guys have like inside edge every year. But also not a card that I'm extremely interested in holding on to at this point with the weight stuff going on with him. That's absolutely insane, and might not be. It could be very serious for this season. So just prayers up to Mookie, but in game probably not a card that I'm super interested in holding. Michael Young, probably B tier. Like if you are somebody that enjoys those Jeter type shortstops, he doesn't quite have the fielding that Jeter has. But his contact's pretty good and his power is at least usable. And I believe he also has dead red or breaking ball, one or the other, not both. So he will have some sneaky power, but I don't think he's worth locking in like Corey Seager for. Uh, Max Muncy, I think he's like a slightly upgraded Nick. He's not my favorite card in the world. And I think they changed his swing a little bit. It doesn't feel like as violent as it has in the past. But he's still pretty good. Definitely not an S tier card because you can't really transition him onto those higher difficulties. But he is fine. Matt Shaw, I think B tier. The stats aren't crazy. A lot of people that use this card really like him. But for me, like the swing doesn't look that crazy. The stats don't look that crazy. To where I'm putting them in like this A tier. You can kind of think of like S tier as like if you're not using these guys, what are you doing? And A tier is more like just replacement level guys. If you don't have the top end guys, you can use these guys. They will be perfectly fine. Or if you really like them, then maybe they will be S tier options for you. That's kind of how I view the tier list. And then B tier is just like fine cards that, you know, if you really want to use them or if they're super niche and one of your favorite players, something like that. C tier is more for these starter cards like Matt Olson. He's objectively, he probably is better than Pete Alonso because I think he has higher average contact, and I know he has really good clutch. Matt Olson always has a good clutch. If you use his Live Series Diamond at the start of last year, you kind of know that his swing can play, and against righties, he's like a guaranteed home run. Matthew Holiday here. I think he's A tier. Like he's pretty solid. I actually need to go and check. Not image. Need to go and check if he can play first. I'm pretty sure he can play first, but I do need a refresher. So he can't actually. That's crazy to get Matt Holiday that can't play first. So we will. I don't even know how you remove cards now. Interesting update. All right, so Mark McGwire. Think he's S tier. Unfortunately, his swing is absolute. Like I don't think it's reprehensible like it has been in the past. It's not the worst swing in the world. But just statistically, he's up there. And then quirks wise, he's always crazy. So this is just a card where you kind of know that his swing has an asterisk on it. But you make it work because the stats are crazy, the quirks are crazy. That he'll just average out. He might not be one of the better options in the game, one of the better hitters in the game, but just statistically, you almost have to use him. Marcus Semien, what are we doing? It's like a defensive second baseman. His swing's okay, and his clutch is really high. Everything else is putrid. I'd probably stay clear of him. Marcelo Mayer. I think value-wise, he's probably like B tier, but just actual card-wise, he's probably A tier. Like, I think you can go get free guys or guys that cost significantly less than him that will give you the same, if not better, production. But there's nothing wrong with the card. He's very solid. Like Leo DeVry, S tier. He's a free card, so value-wise, he's like S tier. And then swing-wise, he's S tier. He's also a switch hitter. He can struggle against one side. I forget exactly what side it is. But I think his clutch is pretty good. So, yeah. So, contact left, not the greatest, but contact right is better, and his power right's better. And his clutch isn't terrible. So, all around, he's solid. I think for a free card, you can make it pretty far with him. Lance Berkman. I've heard some people not love his swing, so I think I'm gonna go A tier. Statistically, he's nowhere close to like Mark McGwire level, but he's a switch hitting first baseman. You can kind of think of him as like a slightly upgraded Santander, probably. If you are somebody that's been spamming Santander on like All-Star and Hall of Fame, maybe when you make it to like Legend or GOAT, if that is in the cards for you, you would want to transition to like Lance Berkman. But I don't think that's a crazy Berkman card by any means. As the year goes on and he starts to get like 95s or something, he should be crazy. But as of right now, just not the best card in the world. Ochev lovers, look out. Kyle Seager, B tier. Swing's good, and I don't think anybody's debating that. The stats are just so poor. You're basically getting a defensive third baseman and having to play out of your mind to make him better. So just not really my favorite card in the world, and I'd rather play his brother at third base and just get the better bat, personally. Christian Campbell, S tier. Another card that, once you make it to that Hall of Fame area, you might start struggling with because his clutch is actually not the greatest. I think it's like 74. So if you may get in some sticky spots where you're facing a righty that's spamming like away sliders, away sweepers, stuff like that, with really high clutch and just shrinking your PCI a ridiculous amount. So I could see that in the cards for him, but in general, he's a very solid card. Maybe structure your lineup to where he's not up like all the time with runners on. Ketel Marte, S tier. I think he's the best live series diamond in the game. I think value-wise, he's maybe the best live series diamond by far, because he's playing second base, a position that doesn't have a ton of competition. He's insanely well statted for a second baseman. I think for me, if people ask me what's one live series card I have to go get unlimited budget, it's Ketel Marte. He is getting more expensive as people start to realize how good he is, and that he's kind of one of the gatekeepers of that Chase Headley that's really good. But he's insane. And it feels like he's going to play up every single day. I think he was like top 5 in NL MVP last year. So he finally got the respect he kind of deserves. Junior Caminero, A tier. Swing-wise, I hear he's insane. I haven't used him yet. But just stat-wise, against lefties, great. I think his clutch is decent enough also. But just against righties, he's replacement level. I think I view him and like Adrian Beltre as very similar cards, who I guess we haven't ranked yet. Where is Beltre? There he is. Okay. So he's at the top. I think these two are pretty similar. I think Caminero is going to give you much better average power, whereas Beltre is going to give you the better clutch, the better contact, and the better fielding. So I think you're just kind of trading off. I don't think either of them are necessarily messing with Chase Headley, but both of them are solid alternatives. Obviously, if you can't afford one of, if not the most expensive collection reward in the game, or like one of those miniature collections. And then J-Ram, I think J-Ram's in that conversation as well, where similar to Caminero, not the greatest in the world against righties. If you get him on a day where he's playing up like plus 10 against righties, he probably has an argument for being the best third baseman in the game because his clutch is also very nice, and he always has a really good swing. But just at base level, no boost or anything, I think he's probably top of A tier. Another card similar to Mookie, where I feel like he doesn't necessarily have the sauce that he's had in prior years, but he's still really good. Altuve, probably C tier. I mean, this is a guy with already bad fielding, and you would be playing him at his secondary now since the show decided to make him a primary left fielder. And I can tell you, he is terrible in left field, and he's going to be terrible at second base. It's going to be errors galore. I'd rather play an out-of-position Corey Seager there or something like that. Just not really a card that's super worth it. And I don't think he's going to hit that great either. Jordan Lawler, B tier. Really no reason to use this card unless you're like at a super low rank and you're just cheesing, like stealing bases and like bunting and you can't hit, so you're hitting a lot of like bloopers and infield poke throughs. He's just not that guy. Defensively, really good, but there is a better shortstop that we're going to talk about that's more defensively focused. So Johnny Bench, this card's terrible. He is like a defensive catcher, and he's okay against righties, but he's like not good against lefties. And then his clutch is 46 or 44, something like that, which makes him basically unusable past veteran or all-star. So just not a good card whatsoever. Just honestly laughable. And Joe Mauer's a lot of the same. Like, if you're hitting perfects with him, you probably won't notice the god-awful power that he has. But just not a card that I'd be using. He's almost like an expensive starter card catcher where there's already better, like, catchers. Weatherholt, not quite to the level of DeVry, but, I mean, if this is a card you want to use in your lineup, there's nothing wrong with him. Jeff Bagwell, a guy that got beat with the proverbial ugly stick every single year, just does not have the greatest swing in the world every year. One of the best first basemen ever in real life. Just never going to be good in the show. You can give him as many quirks as you want. You can give him basically as many stats as you want. He's just never going to be great in the show, especially if you're giving him 52 power. So a card I would avoid, a card that's not great for his value, but if you really want to make him work, I mean, I'm sure you can hit 300 with the card. He's just not going to produce at the same level as a lot of these top guys. Kipnis, S tier, begrudgingly. I think for me, like Ketel Marte blows this card out of the water. I'd probably rather play like Leo DeVry at second base. I know I'd rather play Mookie at second base. And I think Christian Campbell's kind of a toss-up. I think when I see people using Kipnis, I'm kind of like, what are you doing? But objectively, like on paper, it is a fine card. This is what I was talking about with Bazana. It is just kind of upgraded Bazana. It's same team as well, which is funny. But he's just like a better Bazana. Jackson Merrill can't play shortstop if you didn't know. Always, he has a good swing. Ever since he's been added to the game, he has a good swing. But just not the craziest card in the world, stat-wise. Cagliostro, oh, sorry about the yawn. Kind of like an upgraded Pete Alonso, kind of, where he's more like a starter card that you transition out of. But then he's also a diamond, so he goes for more. So I feel like the value's not really there with him. Pudge, probably B tier, honestly. Like, I'm not a big Pudge guy. I feel like he doesn't usually play super great. Like, even when we got that 99 that was really good last year, I wasn't the biggest fan. Has first pitch, has dead red, so that's decent. And he actually has some pretty good contact numbers, but the low clutch really hurts him. Like, why are we giving them this high contact and then really bad clutch and then also not great power? But defensively, he's going to be one of your better catcher options in the game right now. So I guess for that reason, he's okay. I feel like we need to pick up the pace a little bit because we got a lot of cards to get through. Kinsler, they did him dirty. He has a really good swing, but they did kind of do him dirty. Still usable, but not a card I would use. Hank Thompson, feel like there's just way better value at third base. Don't typically love his swings either. Hank Greenberg, this card's poor. He's like a starter card that I just wouldn't use. Like, his power is really bad, even though his contact's good. Cameron Henry Aaron. Obviously playing him at second base, I think he has a better value than if you play him in the outfield. Still not a huge fan of this guy. Traditionally, when he gets like insane 99 overall cards, he is pretty good because he has good quirks and a decent enough swing. But he's like opposite field hitter tendency, which always kind of holds him back. And honestly, I would personally put him like top of B tier, but I'll leave him in A tier because there'll probably be riots if I don't. Gunner, probably B tier. He's like a platoon shortstop. You can make it work lefty-lefty with him, but cards that you have to make it work with, in my opinion, aren't A tier cards. Gil Hodges, obviously S tier. Arguably better value than Roger Clemens because I think Gil will legitimately be one of, if not the best first baseman until like October, probably November. Like, like he is that good, and I'll assume you're gonna put parallels on him as well. Just an insane card that everybody's pretty much hitting well with. Whereas Clemens, I feel like won't have the longevity that like Gil Hodges has. George Brett, B tier, has a really good swing, has really good quirks, but the power just isn't really there. So unless you're on like Hall of Fame legend, I'd probably rather use like Max Muncy. I'd rather use Terry Pendleton if I'm going to use the low power guy. Might as well have him be a switch hitter. Frettled, like I said, not a huge fan of contact first baseman, and Vlad just has like better power than him by quite a bit as well. So for me, Freddie Freeman, not that crazy. Does always have a pretty nice swing, but just not really up to par. Frank Thomas. This is a guy I kind of have to look at the stats for, and he is similar. I actually typed Frank. That's crazy. Frank Thomas always has good quirks. And usually has good stats. You can see 80, 82, 96, 74 with 67 clutch. So a pretty good card all the way around. Definitely not bad. The thing is going to be the swing. So he has a divisive swing, I will warn you on. And he's also, sometimes he's balanced tendency, and I feel like sometimes he's opposite field hitter tendency, which is not great. He has a swing that you're either going to hate or you're going to love. So I think A tier is pretty appropriate for that. Because even if you love it, I don't think he gets up to S tier. And if you hate it, he might even be F tier. So I think A is like a pretty decent little average. Lindor, S tier, barely probably. He's a guy that's going to play up a lot. He was like, I think, runner up in NL MVP, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to be playing up quite a bit. Hopefully he has another good year. But already his hitting stats aren't crazy. It's really just the swing and the quirks that make him play at a level, if not even better than like Mookie Betts. Obviously, when you start to get those high difficulties and his PCI starts shrinking, doesn't have as amazing as value as he probably did, and he probably will to go down to A tier at that point. And overall, he probably is like an A tier guy. But I've just seen people hit so good with this card, and I've personally hit really good with them to where I don't really, I don't know. Tatis, this is a tough one. If he can play a decent shortstop, I think he's A tier because his fielding's already really high to where I feel like you can get away with playing him out of position at shortstop because it is a spot that he's played in the past. So hopefully he kind of has those like built-in animations, if that makes sense. If he does, I think he's like top of A tier. If he can't, because I haven't personally tried this yet, then obviously he's not even on the list. So that's a little controversial one. Ellie De La Cruz. That's a tough one. I think everybody above him is better than him, and I think everybody below him is probably worse than him, with the exception of probably this top line of players. He's crazy. He has the sauce this year. You can still hit pretty good lefty-lefty with him just because of how good his swing is and the quirks that he has. And obviously, he absolutely mashes against righties, as well as being one of the best, if not the best, defensive shortstop in the game. So I think he gets really high marks for all of that. I think value-wise, he probably is like an S tier card. And so you're getting him and Ted Simmons in the same collection, which is pretty nice. But I think like the numbers against lefties just hold him back a lot. And speak of the devil, this is a very similar guy here, where Eddie Murray against righties, awesome card. I don't know if his clutch is that crazy, but I know that he is god awful against lefties. So just not really my favorite card in the world there. Dick Allen, actually a pretty good budget card. Kind of like Hank Aaron that can play third base in a way. So I don't hate him. I played a guy last night that was batting him like third in his order, and he's batting like 400 with him. So there is some sauce there. Do I think he should be batting third for you? Absolutely not. But there is a little bit of sauce there. Derek Jeter, probably like top of B tier. Not the worst card in the world for how everybody's power is kind of playing and how quirks are kind of super important at this point. If you like Jeter swing, I think he can be pretty solid for you. But I mean, this is a card I've seen make errors out there. I feel like you're not really using Derek Jeter to have him make errors, if that makes sense. Like that should be a lockdown card at shortstop. David Wright, B tier. I never see it with David Wright cards. I don't care what his stats look like. I just don't like the swing personally. I'm sure he's great defensively. I'm sure he's a lot of things, but he is not on my team, and that's just what I know. David Justice, probably B tier. He's in a weird spot. He has a nice swing most years. He has good quirks most years. But he's a lefty that hits lefties better. So he's not even really great as like a pinch hitter. I think his clutch is pretty decent, but are you really like, he's just not really a card I would be thinking about. Dalton Rushing, he's up here. He's like in that Will Smith, Contreras category where he's definitely not as good as Basallo, but for a free card, he is pretty good. Third leg Craig, he's all right. He's fine. Really, really low power numbers, borderline on like that Molitor territory where it's just so low that you're not using them. But he brings some unique stuff to catching. He has a unique skill set for a catcher, I should say. To where like there's an argument to be made to run him, but me personally, I'm not. Seager, I think, is close to S tier. You can make the argument for defense. I probably wouldn't run him at shortstop. I like him at third. I like him a good amount at second base. So I think if you're using him there, he's probably S tier. At shortstop, his defense is probably bad enough to where it drags him down. Colson Montgomery, probably top of B tier. As far as a starter card goes, like you can use him for a while. I don't really view there being much of a gap between like using him and this Gunnar Henderson card. He's almost like just the free version of Gunnar. I feel like you're gonna phase out both of them once you get to like Hall of Fame. So that's kind of how I look at those cards. Kobe Mayo, I wouldn't hate putting him S tier. I think he's A tier. The swing can be a little slow at times. He can get jammed by guys that have like outlier sinkers and stuff, or lefties that throw hard sliders. But the power numbers are some of the best in the game right now. So just from that perspective, he's a very good card, especially relative to his value. Value-wise, he probably is like a S tier card. Christian Walker, just another super solid starter card. Like, if Santander didn't exist, he probably would be my go-to starter first baseman just because of how good his swing is. But just not the craziest card in the world. Christian Moore, another starter card worth mentioning, has a very nice swing, has like 80s and everything hitting wise, so he can play for a while. You could use him on Hall of Fame if you really wanted to. Not to say he would be great there, but his swing is pretty nice. Chase Headley, easily S tier. Probably is most people's best third baseman in the game. I think there's some competition there with like Kobe Mayo for some people probably, and then Beltre and Jose Ramirez. Some people will probably like more, but I think Chase Headley is probably the best like mini boss collection reward. Which he's definitely the most expensive. So Carson Williams, A tier. We'll get into where's Lawler. So I mentioned it earlier with Lawler, where if you just want a defensive shortstop, like Williams gonna be your guy. He has more power than Lawler. His swing isn't great, but neither's Jordan Lawler's. So for me, if you just want a defensive shortstop that'll hit some home runs occasionally, Carson Williams is your guy. I'm not a huge fan of the swing. I'd much rather run like Ellie. And Ellie will probably be just as good, if not better, defensively, just because of how tall he is. But he's a very solid card. Correa, starter card on a day where he's playing down. Probably wouldn't even look at him. Billy Ripken's brother. Let's see. Probably just B tier. Like, nothing wrong with the card. I view him kind of similar to like Jeter. So not the worst card in the world there. Cal Raleigh, another starter card where, again, if he's playing down, probably wouldn't even look at him. All he really has is the fact that he's a switch hitter and he has really good power. So if he's playing down, probably would avoid. Stott, not a big fan of this card. Just how he's statted. He's not the craziest. There's a reason he's like the cheapest of the Diamond Quest rewards. And it's because he's not that great. Harper. This is a tricky one. I don't think he's S tier, but I do think he's like an upgraded Freddie Freeman, where if you're using him on All-Star, he's just going to hit way more home runs than like Freddie Freeman will. And he's like an upgraded Max Muncy, to where that is probably somebody you would transition to once you make it to like Hall of Fame, just for the higher clutch and the higher contact, and a similar kind of lefty swing. Brooks Robinson, the human vacuum. If you're running your third baseman out there to be defensive, don't really know what to tell you. Probably D tier. His hitting stats aren't terrible, but it's the human vacuum. Like, what are we doing? Bobby Witt, probably top of B tier. You could probably make an argument for like low A tier if you really like him. He has a good swing. He has some really good quirks, and inside edge might be this card's savior. But when I look at this card, I look at a card that's definitely not worth like 180K like he is. And 87, 80, 55, 65 with 95 clutch. Good fielding, good speed. And like I said, he has some okay quirks in like first pitch hitter and dead red and breaking ball. But I've seen too many clips of this guy just hitting perfect outs. He just doesn't seem to have crazy exit velos. So for me at shortstop, I've got guys I'd rather use. I'd rather run Ketel Marte at shortstop than Bobby Witt. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but I definitely don't think he's worth the stubs that he cost. Bobby Grich, top of A tier, nothing wrong with him. Inoffensive second baseman, similar to like Bazana, where it's nothing that's going to be eye popping, but if you run him at second base, he should be fine for you. And he's a new legend as well, which is cool. Has dead red, 98, 83, 72, 83. Pretty low clutch. So the clutch kind of holds him back. But at the same time, like I view him as similar to Hank Aaron. So I don't hate that ranking. If you want to make the argument, if you want to be super harsh on him and put him in B tier, but we have low clutch guys in A tier, so I don't think it's the end of the world. Bill Maz, straight to F. Like I don't know if he'll ever be good in the show. It would take a ridiculously insanely overstated version of him for him to ever be great. Ben Rice has really good stats and looks like one of the best starter first basemen. I cannot, in good conscience, put him on the same tier as Rhys Hoskins because his swing sucks. Like it's really slow. He's going to struggle a lot to hit lefty. I think I'd probably rather use Matt Olson than him. The Bambino, we gotta think that he's playing first base. And with who's up here right now, I think he's still S tier. Like I think as far as comparing him to like Mark McGwire, definitely statistically way worse. But just has good quirks and just kind of has just aura, for lack of a better word. Namala, really good starter shortstop. But obviously peters out a lot when you get to like Hall of Fame. I mean, this guy has some of the worst like average contact you'll see out of a gold card. He's just a pure power hitting shortstop, which is great for all-star and veteran. Not so great after you start to hit Hall of Fame. Santander. Like, what are we doing? Like S tier. S tier. Definitely worse statistically than Babe Ruth or Mark McGwire, but he is a switch hitter with one of the best swings in the game. If you can get him on a day where he's playing up, awesome. Once you make it to legend, I probably will get rid of him, but veteran, he's probably the best first baseman in the game. All-star, he's probably the best first baseman in the game. And then Hall of Fame, that's probably where you start to run into some, obviously other than Gil Hodges. Did forget about Gil. Hall of Fame's probably where you'll start to run into some snags and just get some ridiculously small PCIs with them to where you might have to phase him out, or you can just move him to like 7, 8, 9 in your lineup, and he will be better there. Soriano, top of B tier. There's nothing wrong with the card. Like statistically, he's not the best hitter in the world. He has some good quirks, and his swing is better. Like when you think of Soriano, you do think one of the worst swings in the game. But last year they kind of fixed and remedied that a little bit, and he's got like last year's swing, so it is a little better. And he is solid, but we're gonna be waiting for like those Yankees cards, or like I think he had a 40-40 season, right, or 30-30. So if we get one of those cards, he'll be a lot better. But this card in general, I probably wouldn't be trying to use at this point. And then Adley, I think he's an A tier catcher. Catcher's a really weak spot right now. You can think of Adley as just a worse Ted Simmons. Doesn't have any great hitting quirks. So it is really going to feel like he has no power, but he has really high clutch, which helps him a lot. But again, just not necessarily like a catcher I would really be thinking about running. And yeah, guys, that is our infield tier list. Unfortunately, we have Matt Holliday here, and I don't know how to delete cards from the list. Post shows on update. There used to be a little X in the top corner, but it doesn't seem like there is anymore. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this tier list helped you. I'm going to try to link it down below, and hopefully you guys can go see it, because when I save it, it doesn't necessarily rank the cards, but maybe for you guys, it will be there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Until next time, peace.